So in today's clip, we're going to be talking about trauma. But before I start talking to you about trauma, I'd like to alert you to the fact that this cannot be taken as a therapy session. You see, I've never met you and I don't know your condition and your medical history. So I advise you to ensure that you consult with your mental health professional before you follow any advice that I may give you on this clip. Now, when we talk about trauma, I think it's important to understand the difference between stress and trauma. You see, when we talk about stress, our brains react in a way that starts to emit hormones, stress hormones. And if you look at this ball, and if it has to represent our brain or our mind, the eye in itself represents the reptilian part of the brain. The actual speckles in here, the flakes, represent our stress hormones. Now, during moments of stress, these hormones get emitted in our brain that causes us to react and keeps us safe from danger. Now, when the event is over, when the stressful event is over, our brain and our mind comes to rest and these hormones start to settle, just like these speckles and flakes in the ball. The difference is that when we're working with trauma, the brain and the reptilian brain doesn't shut off. It consistently emits these stress hormones, keeping us in a state that is responsive and reactive. You see, when trauma hits us, it's not about the actual event. It's about our response to the event. Trauma is not about what happens to us. It's about what happens inside of us. You see, when trauma takes over, our brain shuts off any non-primary function, any non-primary processes, because the reptilian brain is focused on survival. You see, when we experience trauma, the thing is that we're always looking to see where the danger is, even when danger isn't present. Our emotions become erratic, and our behavior becomes confusing. So some of the signs that you would notice during a traumatic event and when you're experiencing trauma is that you are in a chronic state of sadness and anger. You fear danger when no real danger is actually present. Your emotions become erratic. You may experience consistent headaches. You experience insomnia. You experience stress and anxiety. And you also experience a lack of trust. You see, in a state of confusion, we don't know who to trust. Everything and everyone presents a possible danger to us. You see, in a traumatic state, our mind itself removes the actual need to be responsive. Because if you're in a traumatic state, you need to survive the moment. Your brain is in overdrive. Now, some of the conditions that we experience when we're experiencing trauma are a state where our relationships start to falter. We experience a process where we are alienated from the present and kept in the past. Our worldview becomes sabotaged and distorted. We experience barriers to growth because we can't think and act rationally. We also experience shame all of the time. We experience blame all of the time. We don't look at ourselves as competent. But we also lack the ability to maintain relationships because we see ourselves as less than. So when you start to experience trauma, I encourage you not only to acknowledge the symptoms, but to seek professional help immediately.